Hello, welcome back. Here we are to continue our discussion of CSS and Sass. And as a recap, in the last video, we worked with variables and we used variables in our Sass project here. You know, we've replaced them here, and you may have done more than I did because there's a lot more places where we could be using those variables. Let's talk more about using variables and some of the other features of Sass, right? So besides variables, Sass also supports other things that we expect from, other programming languages. For example, if-else statements and for loops, right? So a for loop can save you a lot of work if you have something that you can automate in your code. All of these are under, I'm going to go to the Sass documentation, and they're under, it's a little hard to find here, they're under the at rules, okay? And so under at rules, there's a whole bunch of, special words that we can use, but we begin them with the at symbol, right? So at use, at forward, at import, at mixin, at include, at function, at extends. And at the bottom here, there's a list of flow control. In here, we can see at if else, at each, at for, right? And at while. So let's take a quick look, right? So the at for loop is, at for, we say a variable, we declare a variable, and we say from this number through another number. You can also do from this value to, and if you say to, it stops one before the last number, which is typical of programming languages. But if you want to start on this value and end on this value, you can do from and through. Okay, so let's give it a try. Looking at the code that we have here, I'm going to keep this open in case we make a mistake, because then the error will show up and that'll help us debug it, right? So I'm going to go down to our code here, and I realize I have a block here that is, more or less repeated, right? Like this block is repeated here, right? The only thing that changes is the number here and the name here. So that means that we need to be able to, put a variable value here, and then we also need to interpolate a value. That means we got to combine this part of the name with a variable value that would replace the number here. So that's interpolation, like when you take a value and you put it in a string along with some other characters, right? The other block that could use a for loop is the block down here, right? So essentially these blocks are all repeated. They're exactly the same except for the number here and the rotational value on the second, transform, okay? So let's give it a try. I'm gonna start with this bottom group right here, and maybe to get started here, I'll just copy one of these and then select the rest of them and comment them out, right? So we can always go back to it later. And what I want to do is paste this block here, and then I'm going to put at for here. And since I'm in a Sass file, VS Code is helping me out here, right? So it's giving me the at symbols for VS Code, and you can see it says for a variable. Let's call our variable I, or let's call it n for number. And then we'll go from, our starting value will be 1, and I have 5 petals, and I'm going to change this to through, okay? And then I want to go through 5. So I'm going to count 1 to 5 because I have bloom 1 through bloom 5 at the bottom here. Okay, so we've got our for loop set up. Maybe I'll take this and move it inside the loop here. I think I'm going to tab this over once. There we go. Nice. Okay. So now I have a problem, right? I have one loop here. Or actually, I looped over this, but now I duplicated this 5 times, right? So let's fix that. So, if I look in the code here, you can see that it's bloom 1, bloom 1, bloom 1, right? It repeated that 5 times in the output. So let's fix that. So what I want to do is I want to interpolate. I want to take this value and combine it with the name here. And this can be useful. I'm using it in the case of the keyframe name, but it could also be useful for class names and ID names and other things that you might repeat, right, that need that where you want to insert a variable into the name. So I'm going to use the hashtag and curly brackets. So this is the interpolation operator, right? And then I'll put the I in here, right? Let me save that. Oh, I put I there and I used N. There's my problem, right? Okay, so there we go. So that's kind of working. Now it's not working for all the petals yet because we haven't set the rotation different for each one. So now in here you can see that I've got bloom 1, bloom 2, bloom 3, right? So if you recall, the petal there's 3, right? It starts 1 here, 2, and 3. This number 2 spot is 0 degrees. This is negative 45. So negative 45, 0, 45, positive 45. Oh, no, wait, positive 90, positive 45 straight up, 90, 135, right? So now we got to use our math skills and come up with an answer there, right? So everybody's going to start at 45 degrees, so that'll stay. And this one down here, let's do this. Let's say I'm going to use the parentheses just like you would do in any language for, kind of the algebraic formula there to do some math first. So what I want to do is do n minus 2, right? So the first number is going to be negative 1 here. So it'll be 1 minus 2 is negative 1, and then I'll multiply times 45 degrees, okay? Oh, there we go. So now everybody's back, right? So our first one would be, 1 minus 2 is negative 1 times 45. Negative 1 times 45 is negative 45, right? 2 minus 2 is 0 times 45 gives us 45, and we're here, right? And then that works its way around, right? So that's working pretty good there. So I have a challenge for you now, okay? So we've just done this right here with the for loop to repeat this block, and now we can delete all this, and our whole code block becomes, shorter and easier for us to maybe maintain. The challenge I have for you now is to use a for loop to reduce this nth child business into one for loop like this, like one block. So your for loop will count from 0 to 5. Actually, you could even do it inside here, right? So you could actually put the code here, or you could make another for loop up above, right? Either one. And then the for loop needs to output these things. So you'll need to put the number here, right? The number of the count, and you'll need to put the bloom number here and interpolate it like we did down here. Now there's one other thing that you'll need to do. Since the colors here are different for each one, what you'll need to do is you'll need to figure out a way to put the colors in there, right? And you can do that a couple ways. You could create a color that you could change the colors here and give them numbers like color 1 through 5, right? Another thing that you could do is you could create a list, and I'm forgetting where the list is here. Maybe it's under variables. I'm going to go look for variables here. Operators. Actually, it doesn't. I don't know where they put the list on thing. I'm gonna look it up here. So I'm going to look up lists, right? And lists, right? Here we go, right? So SAS also supports lists, okay? So you can make a list, you use the square brackets like you do in any other language, right? Or most other languages, right? And then you can put values in the list, right? Trying to find a good, like a simpler example here. They don't really give you like a basic list there. I want like the, I don't know, I'm just looking for a good simple list example here. But anyway, I'll leave this for you to research, and then we'll go look into it in the next video and cover it, right? But that's a challenge for you. Read the docs, look up how lists work, right? And they work basically like other languages. So my idea here is you can take all the colors, put them in a list, and then you could pull out each color from the list here, okay? So give that a try and see how you do, and then we'll review it in the next video, okay? So again, thanks for watching and have a great day.